welcome to the Property Wise Property Show. I'm your host, Kieron Bateman, and tonight's show is brought to you by me and by Mr. Shaz. If you want to get in touch, you can get in touch with us. You can call the studio on 01733 602 133. You could text us on 07411 191 062, or you could comment on any of the live streams on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. So loads of ways to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. But right now, we're going to hear from Mr. Shaz Nawaz. How are you, Shaz?
Very good, thank you, Kieron. How are you?
I am very, very well, thank you. It's good to hear your voice.
Always a pleasure. Every Monday evening.
Absolutely. And so this week, we had a little bit of a discussion, and as always, we're going to split the show into two, and the first half will be on mindset, so a little bit of wisdom imparted, and the second half will be back to property. But this week, we've linked to the two. And I know they're always technically linked, but, you know, there's a direct link this time. And you'll see that as we go through. So this week, we're talking about growth mindset. And you're right there, Shaz.
Yeah.
You sounded like you were a million miles away for a second.
No, yeah.
Well, not quite a minute. Maybe 7,000 miles?
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, so, I mean, and having a growth mindset will help you evolve within yourself, and it will enable you to change the way you see the world as you continue growing and going forward. I mean, how much has having a growth mindset helped you out, Shaz?
Huge amount. And you don't know these things until you do, if that makes sense. In the sense that when you don't know enough about something, you can sometimes think you know enough to know enough to do enough, if that makes sense.
You know, just enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, and then you start, exactly. And then as you start learning more and more, and the more you learn, the more you realize, the less that you know. And through that transformation, metamorphosis, if I can call it that, you then start to see change. But the interesting thing, which is also a challenging thing, Kieron, is it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen after 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. It takes more time than that. So it's not like, let's just say, and I'm obviously not qualified for this, as you know, where somebody's trying to lose weight, and let's say they're looking to lose 10 kgs or 10 pounds or whatever. They can track it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis and see some improvement. This is not how that works. How this works is you just keep soaking in information, and you implement it as much as you can. And then at some point, as cliche as it sounds, the penny drops and the rubber meets the road, and you start seeing change, development, improvement in all walks of life, by the way. And this isn't just to do with business, in terms of your communication, in terms of building rapport, relationships, networking. You know, if you're talking about property, which we obviously always are, in terms of being able to talk to funders, to do deals, to negotiate, to personal relationships with your life partner, with your children, with your parents, with your family members, with your work colleagues, email communication. The whole thing improves, okay? But it takes time to get there and see the improvement. And most people don't have the perseverance and the patience, because they want to see results immediately. Now, I've read a book now, there should be some transformation, but it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and I think that, and the interesting thing about this type of growth and this style of growth within your own ego, your own mindset, and that side of yourself and your being, is that it takes a while, and, you know, like you say, suddenly the penny will drop. But when the penny drops, that's also the same point you realize that there is a vast array of things for you to continue learning out there. And this is just the very beginning of the very tip of the iceberg, the beginning of the journey. And it changes everything, because suddenly you're not, the dropping of the penny, when the penny drops, in my opinion, is you realize that you've started to grow, but there's still so much more growing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you know, I'm in Pakistan right now.
Oh,
Sometimes
really?
when I'm, yeah, I thought just in case you forget, and sometimes when I'm driving through some of the rural areas, they've got water pumps, and you can see people pumping, but it doesn't come out straight away. It takes them 5, 7, 10, 15, okay, uh, pumps basically, or whatever the correct wording is, okay, to actually, get the water to come out. And if they gave up after the first or second time, nothing would happen. So you just got to keep pumping that water pump until that water comes out, and that takes time.
Yeah, and a degree of dedication and persistence.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always the case. But as Lao Tzu said, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So you just got to make a start and just get on with it.
Yeah, yeah, very, very true. And in The Art of War, by Sun Tzu, interesting fact about that book, actually, fantastic book. If you ever get a chance to read it, read it. It's not written by one person called Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu is the culmination of a number of different authors and writers that put their work into the book. Sorry to sidetrack there, but
You just want to show us how clever you are, don't you, Kieran?
no,
That's what.
no, it's not about. I'm not actually that clever. My brain clings on to random pieces of information, which makes me sound far smarter than I am. But I'm really not that smart. That I have a long, long way to go. I'm forever
You hide
growing.
it well, don't you? You hide it very well.
Years of experience. But the first stage in any conflict, and okay, the book's talking about conflict, but the theory applies, is that to be able to defeat anything, you must first defeat your own demons. You must first know yourself. You must first be able to control and have discipline of oneself before you can even consider going up against anyone else, anything else, doing anything else. And I think that's very relevant in terms of learning to grow, because you've got to look inwards to look outwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And but I still haven't answered your question, by the way, in terms of how a growth mindset has helped me, by the way. But I
We'll
will
get
answer
around
that in
to
a
it.
second.
I knew
Yeah,
you'd get to
we'll
it.
get around to it slowly but surely. Nothing beats dancing around the topic and not answering questions. I don't know where and how I learned that, Kieran, but I have somewhere
Yeah.
in a past dark life. And
Behind closed, dark doors.
yeah, exactly.
Asim's got all that to look
But
forward to.
and it's all going to come out at some point. Uh, but and interesting because I'm obviously talking on this particular platform about what you've just shared is within Islam when people talk about jihad, generally speaking, let's say obviously living in England or the UK, generally if you talk to anybody about jihad, people think jihad is about some people carrying guns and knives and weapons and going killing other people. But the real jihad isn't that, Kieran. The real jihad is against yourself, which is exactly what you're just talking about there. It's okay. How can I improve myself? How can I overcome temptation? How can I stop the subconscious, okay, taking over and feeding information into the conscious mind, okay, and making me deviate and living life according to certain values and principles which I hold dear. So that fight, whatever we want to call it, jihad or whatever anybody calls it, is always against oneself, and that obviously fits hand in glove with having a growth mindset because you win that fight by educating yourself and learning, okay, more about yourself and also about how you can deal with the challenges one faces on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think it's also about being true to yourself and understanding the truth of yourself rather than hiding who you really are. I mean, I grew up in a time period where, you know, oh, you're a nerd, you're a geek, Now, there was a lot of attached to being a bit of a geek, being a bit of a nerd,
You mean
liking.
people called you a geek?
Yeah, and there is a difference between nerd and geek for those listening, and the vast difference.
So before we skip over that, so did they call you a nerd or a geek or both?
I got called both, but
So are you a geeky nerd or a nerdy geek?
it depends on the subject. In some subjects, I'm a geek. I'm a comic book geek. I'm a cartoon geek, but I am a science nerd and technology nerd. But I can say that happily and proudly now. But growing up, I was afraid to admit a lot of that. And okay, some of it was societal, but I had to become comfortable with that myself before I could be comfortable with the world being uncomfortable with it. Because, yeah, and that's something that comes with growth, is that just understanding that just because you're comfortable with who you are, what you're doing, how you're doing it, the rest of the world might not be. And that's okay, because they've still got their growing to do, and it's their journey, not yours. You're not there to enforce their journey. You're not there to, dictate it to them. They've got to come to that realization on their own, and you've got to leave them to do it on their own time, on their own terms. As long as your journey is where your journey needs to be, then you're growing in and of yourself, because it's about you first, your growth, not how the world sees your growth.
And interestingly, having obviously been in business a long time now, as you know, having done lots of business growth consultations, Kieran, what I find is that most people have been scarred at some point in their past, uh, and that sticks with them, whether they've been bullied, okay, called names, okay, or other things have happened in their lives, okay, that they unfortunately hold on to. So they build this defense mechanism around them, and at the same time are scarred by those experiences, where they're afraid to let go, and they're afraid to show that they are vulnerable, and that there's obviously mistrust in people, and then can't actually be who they are because they're afraid, okay, that they might go through the same experiences as an adult, which they did as a youngster or a teenager. And that takes a lot of courage to break away from that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, it does, and that's one of the nice things about learning to grow within yourself, is with growth, and it goes hand in hand with self confidence, with awareness of self, and awareness of others, and the ability to regulate. You can see where others are being, and you now have, because you have that self awareness, you have that confidence. If someone is coming to you shouting that the grass is blue, you have that awareness, that confidence to go, yes, you're right, the grass is blue, well done, and walk away, because it doesn't affect you. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly. Yeah.
really powerful
And
stuff.
yeah, exactly. And you've got to know when to pick your battles with that as well, and obviously when to hold your ground. But I'll answer your question now, because you burnt it, Kieran.
And well,
And in terms of
now we've
having,
got more context.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've helped lay the foundations. See, I knew there was a reason for you being here every single week, and it wasn't just to drive me around, which you do wonderfully well, by the way. I am grateful for that as well too, Kieran. But a growth mindset uh, has helped me in many, many different ways. And you kind of touched on that partly, which is being able to have the ability to try and understand people, because different people are different. Okay. and we're all wired in different ways. And one's life, okay, sees things from a particular lens, through a particular perspective, okay, based on our knowledge, experience, expertise, nature, nurture, upbringing, education, okay, all of that, okay. And just because somebody has a different point of view doesn't mean you're wrong, they're right, any of that. This means you see things differently. One's reality is different to somebody else's reality, but that doesn't mean either of them are wrong or right. So that's one thing that's helped me a lot, and it's helped me because I've then been able to have those interesting and varied conversations with people, Kieran, to build up rapport and a relationship, which I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. Because once you kind of broaden your horizons and you learn a bit about different things, then you can have an interesting conversation. Because like you and I, as we do sometimes, will talk about Avengers. Now, if I have wasn't interested in that, and you didn't have all your background, obviously having read every single comic, as far as I know, and you're helping me with the backstory, so I can go home and impress my kids. By the way, uh, uh, enables you and me to have a conversation about that, which then leads to other things. So we find each other somewhat interesting sometimes, because we've got that shared experience and interest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and
So if you, yeah,
sometimes
and
it's complementary. Sometimes we learn more from each other
yeah,
based
yeah,
on
exactly.
different points of view.
Yeah, I think I might have shared before. One of my pastor friends shared with me that, and it's probably not his, but he's shared it with me, so I'll give him credit. He said, "There's no such thing as uninteresting topics. All there is uninterested people. So everything's interesting. It's just it's interesting to somebody, but it might not be interesting to us. So if you learn about things which aren't directly related to your particular field. So for me, for example, as you know, it's not totally about accountancy or taxation or about property, but many other things, then that helps you to become well-rounded, and you can become obviously a better communicator, and you can have better conversation. You can talk about different things to different people, because once you build that rapport, then you can talk about business or anything else. Because most people don't want me to just jump in and talk about, oh, here's 64 ways you can make money from property. They want to know, is Shaz somewhat interesting, or somebody who has shared experiences, shared knowledge? Do I know, like, and am I able to trust this person to be able to then do some business with them? So you've got to go through that particular process. So that's one thing. The second thing, it's enabled me to realize that in life you're going to have setbacks. So when you do, think about, this is a gift. What can I learn from this particular setback? Even though you might not see it that way at that particular time, but you then learn to reflect and then see how can I do things differently, better, and that thing leads you on to better things, because we're all good at beating ourselves up, sometimes playing the victim, sometimes thinking how hard life is, how unfair it is, but yet it's those moments that define us and enable us to take a different direction on our journey, which helps us to get to whatever destination we want to get to. So I think the ability to communicate, understand people, and understand different people have different points of view, and also to be able to see that it's not a linear journey. It's peaks and troughs, ups and downs, okay, highs and lows, which get you to where you want to get to, albeit maybe not in the manner that you thought you would do. So that's the second one. The third one is enable me to solve problems in a different manner. So rather than trying to solve problems in one or two ways, I now think about things in different ways because I've broadened my horizons. So I'll try and list 10, 15 ways I can solve problems by looking at the different angles, uh, on based on my own experience and the knowledge that I have. So, for example, I'll see it from the point of view of an accountant, from the point of view of a tax person, a property investor, somebody who speaks on stage, somebody who's a writer, author, that type of stuff. And then when I'm into that particular state, I'll see things from a different point of view and then find a different solution. And I think the biggest one is knowing that I don't have all the answers, but if I'm able to ask the right questions, okay, I can get to the right answer. And the ability to be able to ask the right questions comes through thinking about things and thinking what you want to know, even though sometimes you don't know what to ask, but when you think about it, it comes to you. So those are some of the softer things, the harder things, okay, or the soft skills, the hard skills, obviously, have been the return on investment, building the property portfolio, scaling up the accountancy business, as you know, scaling up the children's day nursery business, uh, starting and expanding the Pakistan business, which obviously you've been a huge part of, and you obviously understand that, and you know exactly where we're going with
All the
that. So
challenges that
that,
go with it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And obviously, being in a different country and have everything else that comes with a different language, different style, uh, uh, different way of doing things. But again, that all again also broadens our horizon. So those are the kind of some of the tangible outcomes. But the softer skills really have been the more important things, which have led to the more tangible outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that being on this growth journey also I'm going to say taught me, but encouraged me to do more of, and allowed me the permission to do more of, was when I said something, following through with it, because I had the confidence to do what I said I was going to do. And some people disagreed with my method, some people disagreed with what I was going to do or my choices, and that's okay. I'm not here to please everyone, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people disagreeing with me, but that's not going to stop me doing what I set out to do or doing what I said I was going to do, and giving myself that permission to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that obviously comes with experience and also having uh, the confidence in your own ability. But from your point of view, Kieran, if somebody wanted to develop a growth mindset, what are some of the things that you think they ought to be thinking about and doing?
I think the first thing I would do if I wanted to start a growth mindset is find a subject you're interested in, and it can be anything from comic books to computer games, maths problems, little bit of science, chemistry, and anything in between. Spreadsheets, if you like spreadsheets, Shaz.
I was thinking notes and crosses, by the way, but carry on.
But it doesn't matter what you pick, but pick that subject, something that you enjoy, something that you're passionate about, and find more out about it. And that's how I would start, because now you're engaging with actively learning about a subject that you enjoy. And when you're actively learning about a subject you enjoy, you'll be encouraged to ask more questions because you want to get deeper into it, go further down the rabbit hole. And that will lead you off into different tangents about different things, about different ideas. But now your brain is you're wiring your brain into a learning model. And because you've done something you enjoy, you'll find that your brain and your mind starts seeking out more and more information about everything. And suddenly you'll be asking questions about. I quite like astronomy and astrophysics as a. This is going to sound really bad, but when I'm bored, I like to watch videos on astronomy, astrophysics, learning about black holes, learning about how the universe was created. That's my boredom watch. And I learn something. I find it really interesting. But years ago, I wouldn't have watched something like that because I wasn't necessarily, as far as I was concerned, space was what you needed for a good sci-fi. And that was about it. But because I had a love for sci-fi, I looked deeper into, some of the sci-fi ships, some of the sci-fi technology, some of it that we have now that we didn't have back then. When some of these things like Star Trek, Star Wars was invented. There's a creator that I follow on YouTube who has put a lot of time and a lot of effort into creating a real world lightsaber, and the science behind it, and go really deep into it. And so that became interesting. And then suddenly you're looking at the science of the technology within the sci-fi universe, and then you're looking at, okay, well, what other science is there that I can explore? And suddenly now I'm into the realm of actual science rather than science fiction, and it just grows and grows and grows from that one little seed, and you end up, bored and watching black hole theory and string theory as you go through your day.
Hosts of courses. I tell you what helped me a lot, and I used to play pool and snooker badly.
Yeah.
But one of my friends said to me, if you want to get better, play with people who are much better than you are. And at that time, it didn't make sense.
But
as I
we
did,
will continue that
I got a little
thought
bit better
after this short break.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
At Master's Pharmacy, we put your health and convenience first. We offer free blood pressure checks and blister-packed medication. With our free same-day prescription delivery service, you can have your medication when you need it. We also offer travel vaccinations, including Hajj and Umrah, along with other services to meet all your pharmacy needs. For more information, contact Master's Pharmacy on 01733 567 208 or visit us at 303 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PH.
मार फूड स्टोर लिंकन रोड ट्रायंगल ते इन्ना रश ओ बल्ले ओए तुसा नी अंबा ने पूरे मुल्के विच रोले
पाकिस्तानी सौगातां जी अंब ले लो जामनू ले लो पाकिस्तानी ताजे मिठे अंब ते जामनू आ गए जी
यकीन करो जी भाई ना मार फूड स्टोर वाले किन्ने वरियां तो सानू पाकिस्तान तो अपनी ब्रांड दा अंब मंगवा के पूरे यूके नु नश लवांदे आ ते हुन पाकिस्तानी जामनू भी भाई ओ जने ने आ पुत्र
Amar Food Stores Al Mashu fresh halal meat and groceries address 613B Lincoln Road Triangle Peterborough telephone 01733 687374 Amar Food Stores Meyar ka naam munasib daam.
Masterminds Tuition Academy is for your high schoolers, your something to provers, your subject strugglers and keen learners, your brave jumpers and fist pumpers. Affordable personalised learning plans are delivered through our centres in schools across Peterborough. But not to worry, we also provide online and home visits with flexible timings, whether it is maths, English, science or 11 plus. Masterminds is a must. Find us on all socials and visit our website mastermindstuitionacademy.com or call us on 07516 166 003. Masterminds, master the matrix.
Thinking of laser hair removal but worried about cost? Well Skin Clinic, Peterborough's #1 aesthetic clinic, offers 0% finance on courses of laser hair removal. We perform thousands of treatments using the Soprano titanium in our prestigious clinic. Virtually pain-free and suitable for all skin types, our team of aesthetic professionals can help you achieve your goals affordably. Well Skin Clinic, making life-changing aesthetic treatments affordable for all. 40 Cowgate, Peterborough. Call or WhatsApp us on 01733 555540.
Satisfy your cravings at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant. Enjoy a tantalising variety of Chinese, Italian, Pakistani and comfort food favourites from starters to desserts. Kids under 5 dine for free, so bring the whole family to our location at 63 Sycamore Avenue. Open every day from 5pm till 10:30pm. Call us on 01733 313131 or book online to reserve your table. Ibrahimi-restaurant.co.uk. Every bite is a delight at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant.
अब भी वक्त है कि आप खुद को कोविड-19 से बचाएं। अगर आप या आपके खानदान के किसी फर्द को मौसम बहार का बूस्टर यानी स्प्रिंग बूस्टर लगना है या आपसे कोविड-19 की कोई वैक्सीनेशन छूट गई है, तो आपके पास जुमा 30 जून तक का वक्त है। पीटरबरा में अपने करीबी वॉक इन वैक्सीनेशन सेंटर्स के बारे में जानने के लिए या अपॉइंटमेंट बुक करवाने के बारे में जानने के लिए विजिट करें thevaccinators.co.uk.
You could be driving, you might be cooking, you could even be working. But whatever you're doing, you're also listening to Salam Radio. And if you're in business, your potential new customers could be listening too. So talk to them and let them know
With
what
you
you have to
24
offer.
hours a day,
Advertise your
365 days a year. This is Salam Radio.
Salam alaikum and welcome back to the Property Wise Property Show. I'm your host, Kieron Bateman, and you can get in touch with anything we're talking about on tonight's show. You can call the studio on 01733 602 133. You can text us on 07411 191 062, or you can comment on any of the live streams on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, and we would love to hear from you. But that was a short intermission break. But going back to the point you were making just before the break, Mr. Shaz, about playing pool.
Absolutely. So the advice given was, if you want to get better, play with somebody who's much better than you, which made no sense to me at the time, because I thought, I'm just going to get hammered every single time, which I pretty much did. But I upped and improved my game. And then that particular lesson, okay, was then solidified when I came across a quote which said, "A rising tide raises all boats," which is a wonderful quote, by the way.
It really is.
So I then started to be around people who knew about things, okay, that I didn't, I was interested in. So I started learning from them, and that was a real game changer, Kieran. Being around people who were top of their game, okay, on the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 whatever things that I wanted to learn about, and I was able, like a sponge, able to take information from them, because they were happy to give it away anyway, because that's their growth mindset about sharing and giving, and that really helped me develop and improve. Okay, and that particular rising tide raised my boat as well.
Yeah, and I mean that goes back to something we've said before, and we'll probably say again, is that ultimately once you start growing in and of yourself, you will start reevaluating your circles, because you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and that may mean that sometimes you will start looking outside your initial circle because you want to grow further and you want to learn more, as you were just saying, learn more, grow more, learn more, grow more, learn more, grow more. But if you're going to learn from someone, what better person than the best in their field? The people who have been there, they've done it. And so you will then start spending more time with those people and grow further.
Absolutely.
And
that brings us nicely to our second part.
It does indeed. Scaling and growing your business. And, on this Property Wise show, we talk about property. So we're going to talk about scaling your property business.
Absolutely. And where are we starting, Kieran?
We start with the foundations. Very good place to start.
That's always a good start when you start with property. Start with the foundations. Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
no, but it's true in business as well, isn't it? Start with your foundations, and by your foundations, what I mean is, you can go into your property business, and you can say, okay, well, I've got this, I've got that X, Y, and Z, I've got this many properties, I've got that much coming in. Okay, cool, I can manage that. I do a bit of this, I do a bit of that, and you don't document any of it. And because you don't document it, because you're not doing it. You're personally involved in all of it. So you're personally involved, you know what's going on. That paperwork, that admin side, it's an extra layer that I don't need, because I'm personally involved in all of it. And that's where you start already, right at the beginning on this foundational level, start coming unstuck. Because once you get to the next level, you're going to have other people doing this. And if you want them to do it your way, or if you've got documentation, you've got the admin side of it, you can go, here is what I have done. I would like you to do more of the same. And it allows you to have a system and a process in place already from the beginning, that you can give to anyone, and anyone can read it, learn it, implement it. And so that's where I would start. I would start with just take notes. Note down everything you do in a day.
I tell you what would be fantastic. Do you remember when we came up with that particular model about, I think it was the 6 Fs. Do you remember when we said finding, funding, fixing,
Find, fund,
flipping?
fix, flip,
Yeah,
refinance.
Yeah. And so I think what we should do maybe next week is talk about that. 'Cause I think that was pretty genius, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think that worked really, really well.
Yeah.
And,
that hopefully will-
because I eat my own frogs and follow my own advice, Shaz already knows this, but I've documented all of that.
Aren't you a good lad?
Well, it just goes to show that we are eating our own cooking, and that when we give out this sort of suggestion and say, if you start documenting early, it's a lot easier to add things on or take things away as and when you need them. But to start with a blank piece of paper when you're 7 years down the road is a lot harder. And so we developed this find, fund, fix, finance, flip model, and we documented the whole process and the whole thing from start to finish.
Yeah, and it isn't easy, but it took us a while, and we had to do a lot of deep thinking. But it's stuff that people can use and obviously get results, and we've done the heavy lifting for them. It's a cookie cutter process, as you know, and I think that's something important as well in terms of scaling up. Is having that cookie cutter process, whether it's given to you by somebody or you create your own, so you can rinse and repeat.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's really important, regardless of when you think about scaling your business, how far does it get before it breaks? What's the breaking point? And I think that's a really good question to ask.
Yeah. Or as the stuff that we as sometimes do, by the way, and, happy to openly share, as you know, is we say, let's now get busy with doing stuff so we get to breaking point. And that's a marvelous thing to do, isn't it? Because that then forces you to make sure that your business operationally, financially, and in every other sense as well, by the way, process-wise as well, okay, is enhancing, developing, evolving, improving, okay, as you're putting more strain onto it. And for you and me, as you know, the strain is, okay, how do we improve the sales and the marketing, and then bring in the efficiencies with that? And
and
it's wonderful. Yeah.
And the other nice thing about looking at scaling, growing, developing your business is how do you make yourself irrelevant? Because that's really, really scary. How do I make my business so efficient, so systemized, so process driven, so data driven, that if I'm not there, it will continue?
But that's the only time you have a business, don't you, Kieran?
Yeah.
Because at any other point, okay, you have a
job,
people dependent, or a person. Yeah, you got a job. You got a job, and you've got a people dependent business. And what you never want is a people dependent business. You want a process dependent business.
Yeah, because
that's pretty much utopia for most property investors and most small business owners.
Yeah, if you and I never went back to the office, certain processes wouldn't happen. Let's be honest. We know they wouldn't. They've not been integrally systemized yet. But we're working towards it. We are working towards these things. We're ever growing, ever developing. There's a lot to learn. There's always a lot to learn. But there's a lot of it. There's a lot of things that would just continue regardless.
Yeah, the majority of them, absolutely, yeah.
And that's a really nice place to be. And the nice thing about that level of growth and that where you can take a step back is taking a step back doesn't mean leaving the business. And I think a lot of business owners and small business owners and entrepreneurs sometimes get in their own way with this, is that, oh, but the business needs me, the business needs me, the business needs me. But what if it didn't? What could you do? What could you achieve? Because you've already developed one business and you've systemized it and processed it and made sure that everyone is following it. And you know you can check in, and as long as you check in and the systems are being followed, the process, the business is working, the model's working, it's stacking up, it's scaling. So now
And you can't tell it. If it relies on a person or a very small group of people, then it's not saleable, is it? Why would somebody buy your business? Because it's pretty much worthless to some extent. What they might buy is your client customer base or the contacts or some other part of your business which may have some value.
But that's not
but the
as
greater value
valuable
is
as an
in the
entire
whole
business.
Yeah, because it doesn't work without you. So there's a lot of mileage in doing that to make sure that at some point when you want to exit, you've got some capital value there. Okay, and it's the same as we've talked about property, haven't we? Do two things. The first one is create cash flow, monthly cash flow, which is profit. Okay, I mean cash flow isn't exactly profit, but I'm just simplifying.
But simplifying,
okay?
yeah.
Yeah, and then also then you've got capital value building up over time, and then you get obviously the best of both worlds, and that's how a business should be. Okay, create monthly cash flow. Okay, make sure it's making profit, and then also increase, enhance, improve the capital value. So at the end, okay, all your hard work that you put in over the years, it has given you a monthly return, but at the end, it gives you a big, fat, juicy check, okay, which is the capital value of your business.
Yeah, exactly that. But it also means that if you, let's take, for argument's sake, a property investment business. Can't imagine why I thought of that. But
there's a reason you get paid the big bucks, Kieran.
Well, I get paid the bucks. But if you've developed your business and systemized it to a point where, say, your primary strategy is buy-to-lets, and one half of the business focuses on finding funding and refurbing the properties, and the other half focuses on tenants, longevity within the business, management, maintenance, and that side of it. But both systems are processed and systemized. Well, okay, what do you do next? Well, you continue scaling that business because you've got the systems and processes in place. But then you might look at it and go, yeah, but do I want to open another one within the property sphere that does something slightly different? Maybe serviced accommodation. Maybe you look deeper into HMOs. Maybe you start commercial conversions. It gives you that freedom to look at those options in depth rather than rushing around like a headless chicken, which a lot of staff do, let alone a lot of business owners. And business owners work harder than the staff, I promise you that. And then suddenly you've got that breathing space to go, okay, well, I want to start something else. I want to do something else. Or, heaven forbid, you go, I'm going to take the family away for 3 weeks. I know the business is going to be okay. I don't need to be attached to my phone. I can focus my energy and my time on my family. And that's magical. Because you only get one chance to see your children grow up.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think obviously linked with that, which is an important point you make about scaling up, is to some extent you have to diversify.
Yes.
Okay. And don't put all the eggs in one basket. That's going to help you to scale up. And linked with that is to scale up, to truly scale up. For most people, this is, by the way, because there's always anomalies. Okay. There's always a Facebook and a Google and an Apple and all those type of businesses in every sector and every industry. But generally speaking, you've got to have more than one stream of income. So as you've said, you've got your buy-to-lets, then you start, okay, now let's look at service accommodation, and then okay, I'll add on to that commercial conversion. So now you've got 3 streams of income, diversified to some extent. Okay, because they are 3 very different types of businesses, even though they're in the world of property.
Yep.
And
You've actually got 4
now,
because you've also got all your tenant side of it.
yeah, exactly. Yep. And then you've got your opportunity now to scale up very, very quickly. And obviously, when I say very quickly, quick to one person might be buying 2 properties a year or buying 1 property a year, and somebody else it might be adding 10, 15 properties a year. And that's not for you and me to obviously tell people what quick or what slow means to them. That's for people to decide themselves. But if they're looking to scale their business, then diversifying and having more than one stream of income is important. And I think also, Kieran, what's important is scaling up doesn't always mean, okay, having more properties.
No.
Scaling up to somebody could mean, okay, that I am going to improve the efficiency, I'm going to improve the profitability, or I'm going to get out of this particular sector, okay, and go into a different sector or a different subsector or sub niche, okay, and use my money wisely and find ways where I can improve my profit by 50%. So I've scaled up my profit by 50%, but I'm not working as hard. So I'm working less, but making more use of what I have in terms of resources and capital. So I'm being efficient and effective. And that's also scaling up.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
You've scaled up your profits.
Yeah.
Not the size of your business, but you've scaled up your profits.
And something interesting you said there is that you can scale it up so you're not working as hard, but you're getting more cash flow. And the reason why I draw attention to it is because a lot of people mistakenly connect 2 dots that aren't actually connected, and that is level of hard work, level of income. And in some cases, yes, but in the majority of cases, working harder doesn't necessarily mean better cash flow. Working smarter and in the right way, you always have to work hard to get better cash flow. That's almost a non-negotiable.
There's no shying away from that. You're absolutely right. And we did a whole series on that. Do you remember when we talked about?
Yeah, we did.
Mindset and money and how money moves. Okay. Just to add to what you've said, is some of the hardest working people in the world, okay, are the poorest people in the world.
But that's not necessarily, I mean, some of that might be education, some of that might be drive, some of there's a thousand million reasons.
Opportunity,
but
a lot of things,
business owners, entrepreneurs, property investors, people like that. These are people, don't get me wrong, who work incredibly hard. And, as Shaz will attest and I can attest, I mean, Shaz and I both work very, very hard and very, very diligently, but we work in a way that, or we both try to work in a way, and Shaz will correct me if I'm wrong here, where no effort is wasted.
Yeah, absolutely, because you just learn that you've got to make the best use of every moment that you have.
Yeah, and I learned this off of Shaz. No doubt.
So Ali, I've told you at least one good thing.
Yes.
In the last 50 years.
Yes. Yeah.
Good. I can sleep easy tonight.
You can. You've taught me a lot of valuable lessons, and you continue to teach me valuable lessons, and I appreciate every single one of them. I truly do. And but that's the thing. It's not. Don't get confused with the idea of working harder. Work hard, but work smart. Systemize, process, plan, develop, grow. That will get you more returns and more cash flow than just working harder. It's the old martial arts adage that someone who is strong, if you take 2 martial artists, same level, same quality, they've got the same number of years experience, but one has focused purely on power. They will lose every single time to the weaker person who has mastered technique.
Yep.
Every single time, and without fail.
It's important in scaling up as well, because next week when you're going to share our 4, 5, 6 F model. Also, Kieran, if you bring in the entrepreneur's cookbook, okay?
Yep.
In there, I wrote at the start the 6 stages of scaling up a business. Okay. So obviously today we're setting out the foundations. Next week we'll go into the real nuts and bolts of scaling up, both using our the FFF model and also those 6 stages. But you're absolutely right, because when a person who becomes a good entrepreneur, in my experience, or a good business owner, they're two different skills. There's one who develops more than one skill. So they have a core competency of 3 or 4 skills, as you've shared in your example of martial arts. They have 3 or 4 core competencies that they build and develop and strengthen over time, okay, which makes them a well-rounded person, which helps them to achieve whatever goal they set out to achieve within the limitations that they put upon themselves. Because you've heard me say before, okay, we never achieve beyond our expectations and our limitations. So whatever limitations people want to put, okay, they can do. Some people want to put no limitations, even better. Just go out there and do your best and scale up and grow and expand as you see fit.
Yep, completely agree. And I mean, when you look at limitations, you can completely see that in the animal world. You look at certain fish. Certain fish will only grow to the size of the tank they're in. You give them an ocean, they grow to these massive, humongous sizes. Give them a fish tank, and they only grow to the size of the enclosure they're in. Fleas will jump a couple of times in a jar, hit their heads, until they will learn not to jump any higher than the lid of the jar. Then you can take the lid off, and they won't jump out.
Yeah, but that's so beautiful, isn't it, Kieran? Because that, for us in life, sums up what we're really saying is stop swimming in a tank, okay, and stop living in a tank, and go out there and discover the deep depth of an ocean.
Yeah, and the depths of yourself, the depths that you can reach, that will be you will be surprised at yourself.
Yeah, but that is our ocean, isn't it? If you know what I mean.
Yes, yeah. And you will surprise yourself as to how deep you can go and how far you can get. And to hammer home that point, I guess, is if you look out in a clear night sky and look at all the stars, and we're not going to get into the science of how far away the stars are and light years. And anyway, I digress. Sorry, but if you take a shot and aim for the stars, aim for the furthest distant galaxies that you can see, and you make it out of the solar system or make it to the moon, you're still further ahead than every single person who is still looking down at the ground. And not by a small margin either.
Absolutely.
And people spend so much of their lives looking down. Start looking up, start growing. Because growth is upwards.
Yeah. But at the same time also, with that, which I think is important, is where possible, be proud of the stuff you achieved. Some of the people I meet and say, because inevitably it gets to this question, by the way. And it used to be the same when I was around a lot of speakers. What do you speak about? What do you speak about? Or every speaker wants to know what somebody speaks about. And in the world of property, it gets to how many properties do you own? And the answer people you give, I only own 5. I say, you say you only own 5, but in this room here, there's people who own none. 1, 2, 3. So only 5 isn't only 5. That's 5 more than what most people may have in this room here. So own that, be proud of that, and say, I own 5, but I want to get to 15. That's fine. Does that make sense? So people who whatever they have, they sometimes don't see that as an achievement. I think see it as an achievement and think this is the floor, and then have a ceiling, as high as you want.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I think also off the back of that is be proud of what you've achieved, regardless of where you think you are in your journey, but also be grateful for where you're at, because there's always there's always a bigger fish. There's always somebody bigger, better, done more, seen more, got more, whatever. You know, I don't compare my bank balance to Elon Musk's bank balance because, you know, he's gone on a different journey to me. I can't compare the two. But does that mean that I've not achieved anything because he is so much further ahead than I am? No, not at all. And I'm grateful for what I have learned and what I have achieved. And always be grateful.
Absolutely. Wise words there.
Absolutely. And on that bombshell, that is almost the end of the show. So next week we will go deeper into the model that you and I developed, the 4, 5, 6 Fs, and I will also bring in and we'll have a quick anecdote from the Entrepreneur's Cookbook. Until then, Assalamu alaikum.